Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from passionate Reds, only on All for United.
Hello everyone, welcome, All for United here. So the show tonight is going to be about the game of the season, and this is kind of going to wrap up our sort of season review in so many different ways. We'll be moving on to different things after tonight. Of course, the season's over, not being good at all. In fact, some might even say it's been shite. So what we'll do is we'll get straight into it. I'm not going to start with my game of the season. I'm going to start with Reece. I'm not going to do a random generator like Simon did the other day. I'm just going to give John the short straw, and he's going to go last. You can't pick the same ones, so everyone get involved in the comments. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, tell your friends about the video, tell your friends about the channel. Get involved in the comments what your game of the season was, and I'll tell you mine once all the lads have done theirs. Reece, mate, what was your game of the season and why?
Well, I'm gonna go slightly outside the box for this one, and it's the Leeds game, but not the first one of the beginning of the season. It was the away at Ellen Road, because the atmosphere. I'm not far from Leeds. See, I've got a lot of friends who are Leeds fans, so for me, it's kind of an added bonus when we beat Leeds.
Well, I work in Leeds a lot. I work in Yorkshire, believe it or not, even though I live in Manchester. So it's always nice to go over and make sure they're aware I'm from Manchester.
Yeah, just be careful with that one, mate. But yeah, no, it was the game at Ellen Road, because the conditions were awful. If you recall, the rain had belted down all day. The fans were beaming. To be fair, Ellen Road's a good atmosphere, especially when it's a battle against the Roses. So yeah, it was a good game, very good game. I remember McTominay going in with some tackles. I remember us going 2-0 up. It was a gritty performance, a performance we've not seen from many of the players this season. You know, grafting and working hard in tough conditions. And we went 2-0 up, and surprisingly, that was a Maguire. Maguire got the first goal. I don't know if anybody recalls that one. Maguire got the first goal, followed by Fernandes. And we were 2-0 up, and we were flying. And then all of a sudden, reality struck, and it was the United of this season, where we threw away a 2-0 lead, and it quickly came back to 2-2. And we were thinking that we were looking down the barrel of probably losing the game. And then all of a sudden, Fred pops up with a classy goal, and then Alanga finishes it off as well in the 88th minute to make it 4-2. So it had everything, really. It had a battle, it had poor conditions, it had atmosphere, it had goals. It had a bit of a topsy-turvy kind of result in terms of us thinking that we were going to run away with it, and then thinking that we were going to lose it, and then going and grabbing the game again. So it was up and down for me, and I kind of enjoyed that game as much as you can enjoy a battle against Leeds, and then going back to 2-2. It was a good performance. So yeah, I enjoyed that one, Callum. It was good.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was something at least we could all smile about for something in this season. It was a good game. That it's always nice beating Leeds. Isn't it? I can't actually. They're up there with. I actually hate Leeds more than I hate Man City. Man City are just a bit irrelevant, really, aren't they? They're just a pointless club. Stu, mate, what was your game of the season? What was your favourite part of it?
Yeah, well, I've gone the same. I've gone completely outside the box, and mine was Chelsea away, 1 apiece.
Oh, really? That's a strange one.
Yeah, Chelsea were playing superbly well at the time.
Yeah, they were at the time, weren't they?
We come off the back of a 2-0 loss to City and a 4-1 loss to Watford. We'd beaten Villarreal, I think, away 2-0, and then we went to play Chelsea, and we were under the cosh for a really good amount of that particular game. But the reason why it was our best game, it's the only game this season we showed any real fight and any real cohesive unity. We had Bailly and Lindelof at centre half. We only had 3 shots all game, 2 on target, and obviously Sancho had that Jorginho mistake. Went through and expertly put it away. So Sancho was fresh off his Villarreal goal, and then he obviously scored. So for me, it was all about team unity that day. Carrick was in charge. We just had a real look of a team that wanted to play football and wanted to work together. We defended resolutely. until we had that real piss poor penalty against Aaron Wan-Bissaka, where I think it was Hudson-Odoi kicked the undersole of his foot, and they deemed that to be a penalty. And of course, Jorginho expertly put it away. We could have won that game, or we could have lost that game right at the very death. Because if you remember, Mendy gave the ball away to Fred, and Fred dallied like crazy. Instead of going for a first-time chip or lob, he decided to get onto his favoured left foot, and then he just basically passed it into Mendy's arms. And then I think on about the 7th minute stoppage time, Rudiger had a brilliant chance at the back post, which he failed to convert. So you've got, sometimes when people say the best games, you've got to take goals out of the equation. Goals don't mean anything apart from victory. It's how you play. And that was one of our games where, in fact, the only game of the entire season that we really looked like a good, solid defensive unit, irrespective if we beat Newcastle 5-1 and Leeds 4-1, etc. Coming off the back of those two horrible losses to City and Watford, nobody was expecting us to get anything at Chelsea. Nobody. All the fan base was expecting us to get hammered, and we were brilliant. And so, yeah, for me, Chelsea won a piece.
Yeah, it's not a bad shout, that. I didn't actually expect that one. I've just seen a good point from Neil, actually. Carrick's probably manager of the season. Do you know what? I probably wouldn't argue against that, to be completely honest.
Three games.
I do remember that game. It was, I remember Sancho, he scored that game, didn't he? And I remember saying, hopefully we'll start to see a different side to him now. And I think that was kind of the game where he kicked on a little bit, and it ended up being something that proved me right, really, wasn't it, Stu?
Yes, unfortunately. You're never going to let that go, are you?
Never, ever.
I've only got half the season really in my favour, haven't I, to be fair?
Well, yeah, exactly. But, you know, not everyone can be right all the time like me. It's not a problem.
Is correct.
Don't worry about
that is correct, pal.
John, mate, what was your game of the season?
Well, I think it's interesting because obviously there's been a few games where I haven't mentioned, like the 5-1 against Leeds, 4-1 Newcastle. But interesting, I'm going to go for one which I think had a massive impact in terms of like where we finished, that we were competing against. And I'm going to go for the West Ham away game in September, where we won 2-1, because in actual fact I thought we played quite well that day. We went 1-0 down, we got back to 1-1, we had a few chances and all that. Lingard obviously scored a worldie late on. There were several penalty shouts, and of course De Gea made the penalty save late on. And much like the Rashford game in January, obviously it's been a crap season, but it could have been worse if we got Europa League. And those two wins against West Ham were massive for us, and massive moments. And I just think that West Ham game in September practically had everything in terms of penalty saves, great goals, controversy. It had the lot, and I think that it felt at the time that was an important result, and it did turn out to be that. So for me, I would go for the West Ham away game in September.
Do you know what? I thought this was going to be like dead easy because of like a couple of games at the start of the season. I thought you were all going to really struggle to think of other ones. I thought you were all going to go either Newcastle for Ronaldo or Leeds for me.
That's what I was expecting.
And all three of you have done a different game. And do you know what? I was going to do a different game to that as well. I've seen it in the comments a couple of times, I think. My game of the season was, I should probably say half of the season, really, shouldn't I? When we were 2-0 down against Atalanta, we won 3-2. I remember that. I was watching it in a pub in Urmston, really annoyed with myself at full time because we were 2-0 down, and I just said to the lads I was with, and I just went, I do wonder if we'll win this. I just can't see this being it. And I just wondered if we'd end up winning 3-2. So I checked the odds on Sky Bet. Sky Bet, if you want to partner with us, feel free. But I did check, and we were only like 3-1. So I didn't bother putting any money on.
We were getting chances that game. I was at the game, and we were right. I was in the south stand right next to the away fans, and they were all just shouting Italian abuse at us and throwing things and sticking whatever.
If it was based on the game I went to, I'd go for the Villarreal game because I was at that.
Well, Atlanta was one of the few I've not managed to get to this season. I've probably been to about 80% of the games at home this year, and that was one of the ones I couldn't get to. So it was quite strange watching it in the pub. And
I must admit, the Atalanta game, Carl, just on that, it felt like Old Trafford of old. It felt like the crowd was sort of giving them that extra little push, and you just felt like it was always still on. It was always still on, even at sort of 2-0. You just felt like we were going to get a goal. So I know what you mean.
Do you not think that's kind of been something that can be really commended from us lot, I think, this year, in terms of not United, but us as fans? I think the best thing about United fans has always been a case of we do stick by the team no matter what. And I think at some stage this season, we kind of have run out of patience with the players. You've heard it in the stands by chanting that they're not fit to wear the shirt and things like that, and they're doing it. But even at the end of the games, when we played poorly, you saw it at Crystal Palace, the fans were still clapping the players. I think it's something some of the players could do with remembering that, the fans will always stick by them, and they'll definitely stick by them should they sort of show the effort that the fans believe is right. And unfortunately, that's not happened enough this season. And it's just the way it is. But, it's the good thing about tonight's video, everyone, is it kind of is drawing a line under the season. It's our last one where we speak about it. We'll draw on it a little bit, but it won't be something that will be constantly sort of centering shows around, I don't think. So, at least we can all shut up about it.
I've just seen a comment there.
Man United 4-2. Was that the Ellen Road one? It was, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's the one I chose. Jacob's commented there saying, "What was the worst game of the season?"
I was just about that. Was I'm hosting. I was
sorry, mate. Sorry, mate. I'm trying to help you here.
Seeing as we've done game of the season, what about our worst game of the season, guys? Go on, Reece. I'll go to you first.
I was joking because there's only two really. There's only two you can really pick from that were absolutely, that were the worst games of the season. I don't know. This makes me want to cry thinking about either.
You can really only pick two. I think every single one, other than about.
We're talking about absolute worst. Either City or Liverpool game, wasn't it? Really.
But I personally think Watford game.
Again, I'd go left field. Young boys away. Young boys away. We were abysmal. A team of that caliber should never have been beating us at their place. Never in a million years.
I was at the Villa game in September. That's where it really started to go down.
I think the Wolves game at home. Martinho scored on about 80 minutes, and that was dreadful. I took my little boy to that, and it was like I'm trying to encourage him to support Man United, and I took him to Wolves, and we lost 1-0 at home. It was like, oh god,
I went Atletico as well. That was a bad game.
Yeah, I think that was. In terms of being disappointed, because I think we probably should have got through. I think our season was over at that stage, wasn't it? The players gave up after that. As soon as we lost to Atletico, that was it. The players didn't care anymore.
The reason I wouldn't pick Atletico is the caliber of opponent. That's the only reason. That's why I went for young boys, because you got to look at the caliber of opponent, and I just think that we should have gone out there and some of the things we did on that particular night was poor. It was just poor. It was the whole thing, it's an artificial pitch bollocks and all that just wound me up.
I've never understood that.
There's nothing to understand, Cal. That's the thing. There really isn't.
They play about bounce, don't they, and stuff. But it's
the freaking professional footballers. They can all shut up. Like, how can they not play a game of football just because the pitch is plastic? Like, they can all piss off.
They've got an artificial pitch in Carrington.
Yeah, exactly. They know what it's a game of football at the end of the day. They need to.
I think it was the one that Saka's sending up, wasn't it? I think we win that game comfortably if that doesn't happen.
It's just, I think the best way to sort of conclude that all is it has been a very, very poor season, and I don't think anyone could argue anything different. I think everything from the pitch to off the pitch, the management, the players, the board, the owners, absolutely everything has just capitulated to the point where it was just shocking. It really was. Just going back to the best game of the season, Vicky said there about Tellez and Ronaldo. I think on one of the shows the other night, did somebody say Tellez was goal of the season?
No, I said I was right behind it when it went in because I was in the strap that it came at my ankle, so for me was up there.
I wouldn't go against that. To be fair, I think the probably was goal of the season. Not that or Ronaldo belter against Spurs when we won 3-2.
I went for the Arsenal one, the Arsenal Ronaldo goal away. I just thought it was a phenomenal piece of skill and finish. I just thought it was absolutely. Do you remember the one I mean?
Yeah.
No. Did I even watch United this season?
Oh, it's a phenomenal goal, Cal. If you saw it, dude, you'd agree with me.
We did this the other night, though, didn't we? I mean, the guys have done their own work.
Yeah. So, I mean, you broke up then, John, mate. Say that again, sorry.
So, no, I was about to say another good one that Ronaldo scored was in the away game at Tottenham as well. And then Bruno played the ball over the top and he was
that was my second choice, that was.
Yeah.
That was my second choice. Guess what my third choice was, Cal?
Go on.
Maguire against Atalanta. It was a hell of a finish. Absolutely brilliant finish. The one where it came across, flashed across, and he had to keep it low.
Absolutely,
I think that when it kept going back to the goal of the season, obviously I know it was discussing another show, but I would probably go that Tellez goal just because I think the sheer amount of skill and composure you need to keep the volley down and to get it through the players and to get it on target.
He got over the ball phenomenally.
And he got over the ball in such an odd position. I thought it really was brilliant.
I remember at the time.
It was probably shout for game of the season. That I think you said it, didn't you, John? I
did. I was right behind it because it was almost like coming towards me when he struck it. So I had the perfect angle because I knew it was going in as soon as it came off his foot, and it just seemed to take an age on his foot, and you see some of the videos around that time that, a few times, what the hell is that? And he belts in the bottom corner.
The problem with the Tellez goal for me was, and this is why I don't ever pick goals like that. It's my own personal opinion. Is he does it one in about 50 fucking shots.
Yeah, true.
Now Ronaldo, he's done that all his career. Not that particular strike, but he's done that all his career. People were talking about, I think it's Kovacic's volley for goal of the season. Yeah, fine, a great goal, but when was the last time he did that? He's only ever done it once.
I think I only picked that because we were playing bad in that game, and that goal changed the game.
No, it was a good goal.
He was playing particularly bad in that game, John, as well. If you remember, Dan Juma was ripping to shreds.
Yeah. Oh, had to cover my eyes after that performance. Every time he was running through,
that's the only reason I don't pick goals like that, because if they're just one of those where, even I've done it myself when I've been playing, I've hit a sweet volley and it's gone in, and I'm thinking, I wonder if I come over 10 times, how many times did I stick that away?
Do you know what
zero.
Do you know what though, Stu? I played football the other night doing this training for this charity game. It's my pinned tweet, by the way, if you want to donate.
Is it?
But I was training the other night, and I was absolutely shit, absolutely shocking. I could not pass, couldn't shoot, kept losing the ball. I just couldn't. I was absolutely garbage. In fact, I think one of the viewers, Jack Lever, that's who I played with, and there you go. He was quite bad, to be fair. I was shocking, mate. It can't be as good as you, of course, all the time, but I was shy. Just couldn't.
No, mate, seriously. On Wednesday, I played. I trod on the ball 4 times during the match. 4 times. I couldn't do anything. Terrible.
I mean, I was literally passing to players that were 5 yards away from me and kicking it out. I just couldn't play well. I don't know what was wrong with me.
Brilliant. Those are the best games, Cal. Sometimes, because
I best fucking put my ideas up.
Yeah, did you like
to put my ideas up? To be fair,
when I fell over for the third time on Wednesday, I just got up laughing. I got up laughing. My teammates were looking at me going, yeah, get off. I was just laughing because I was terrible. It happens to us all, mate. Trust me.
Yeah, I mean, at some stage you have just got to scream "fuck's sake" and then wonder and just start laughing at yourself. Anyway, let's move on. Obviously, all the games of the season, we've had some good picks there. We've had some good goals of the season, of course. Hasn't been the best season, of course. But let's move on. As some news broke today, certain Mr. Rangnick has officially announced that he's leaving. Now, we had a discussion about this a while ago, didn't we, Stu? In fact, I think you said it on one of the videos that you believed that he wasn't coming in to be the manager; he was coming in to effectively sort the structure out.
I stand by
and
that.
I did agree with you actually, and kind of expected him to go upstairs, do his business, and sounds a bit wrong that, but you know what I mean, and it's kind of just gone all wrong. So. What do you reckon, Stu? What do you reckon of that comment now? Would you go back on it, or are you quite surprised he's gone? What do you think?
No, I stand by it, and I actually think what he's done is made them look like a complete bunch of tossers by being so vocal. And the reason I stand by it is that nobody can tell me that the changes that have been made in the backroom side of Manchester United have got nothing to do with him. I find that bizarre that anyone would even consider that, because for the 9 years previous to him coming in, nothing like that has ever happened. Nothing so dramatic in terms of personnel change has ever happened. And I think he was a bit too outspoken for them. I think he kind of showed the board up and the management team up for exactly what they are. Non-footballing people who don't understand football. And I think what they've done is, I mean, I saw someone on Twitter today, which I don't necessarily agree with, but I don't know it. Somebody claims to have inside knowledge that he was sacked 2 months ago, and they wanted to use Austria as a kind of smokescreen. But look, the way that international management works and the way that the world works today with Zoom and emails, you can do part-time consultancy a piece of piss. I mean, you've only got to spend 4 hours a night at your PC, your laptop at home, and you can do your part-time consultancy work. It's not a difficult thing to do, to combine those types of roles. So I stand by my comments. I really do. I think where we've kind of gone wrong is if we were going to have Rangnick in purely as a consultant, we should have done that and have an interim manager in. But I think he's done a lot of good work behind the scenes, irrespective of what's happened on the pitch. I think he's done a lot of good work behind the scenes, and I think he can be a big miss to us. I really do. There is a school of thought that Ten Hag's come in and said, look, I don't need Rangnick. I can take care of it by myself. Rangnick might have turned around and said, well, look, actually, I've laid the foundations. I told you what you need to do. You've already acted upon it. Maybe you don't need me. You don't need to spend this probably $1 million a year consultancy fee he's going to be charging. So there might be a number of reasons. But my overriding thoughts are he's exposed the board for what they are, non-footballing people. And I think he's made them look a bit foolish. And I don't think they like it. And I think there's been a bit of a clash somewhere. So I stand by what I said. I know people will point to Laurie Whitwell's or whatever his name is, his piece about, Rangnick was never there for that. He's the only one that ever wrote a piece like that. He didn't get picked up by anyone else. He was the only one that wrote it. And I know journalism anyway, because I'm a journalist. I'm a sports journalist. In MotoGP and World Superbikes, I know sports journalism works. It's lazy as fuck. It really is. You get a tiny little snippet and you will spin it to make an article. That's how journalism works. And I think, Manchester United have been victims of this for a long time. It isn't difficult to find, for example, and I'll wrap up now. It isn't difficult to find who's been leaking to the press. It's a piece of piss, an absolute piece of piss. It's so easy because what you tend to find is you get little kind of junior people in junior roles in a organization that will feed a journalist a little tidbit here and there to make him look like he's in the know. I always say something about buzzwords, and I genuinely mean this from a business perspective. A lot of people, instead of using money, they'll use fiscal, and these words are designed to make people look way more intelligent than what they actually are. And this is what happens in journalism, I'm afraid. And this is, you get these little bit snippets. Hey, look, you can rely on me to give you this little leak and this little leak, etc. What you tend to find is the club will know what's gone out, and the club will have PR'd what's gone out, and the club would have allowed what's gone out. So there's a whole load of hysteria going around about Manchester United. And so I think it's just a little bit sinister from the board, this one, I think, in my humble opinion. But that's what I think he's outed them and they're not happy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of the impression that I think the idea of him being a consultant was
Exactly
a little bit... It was a little bit messy. It wasn't very clear as to what exactly he was going to be doing. Ultimately, I think that was probably something where, because his role wasn't clear, he probably didn't know, or we weren't clear on what it was going to be. I'd like to think maybe the reason why he's left is because Ten Hag gone, I don't need him. He has called out and exposed the ball for what they are, which is shocking. I just find it just another typical Man United thing, if I'm honest. Effectively, you've brought in somebody that is very good at building clubs up and bringing them to where they need to be in terms of behind the scenes, bringing him in as manager, and then when it's time for him to actually do the thing that he is good at, he then leaves. I just think it's very typical Man United. At the end of the day, I'm hoping Ten Hag's gone, look, I don't need him. But I think we can all agree in terms of a managerial appointment and managerial experience, it's been a bit of a disaster, to be honest. It's been pretty garbage. The players clearly haven't taken to him. There you go. It's time to move on. I think we can all thank him for what he's done in terms of exposing the board, but I don't think anyone can sit here and go the managerial side of things has been anywhere near a success. We only aren't in the Conference League because West Ham lost on the last day. Now that would have been seriously embarrassing. I do sometimes wonder. I think it was Ben that said it actually, but him coming as a consultant with another manager coming in would have probably been a better idea, I think. But what do you think, Reece?
We've had a few discussions on Rangnick before we heard this news over the last few weeks, and I've not been really convinced by him, really. I mean, there's a kind of general feeling, and I respectfully disagree a little bit with Stu, and I think he kind of knows that, but we have, I think, a lot of respect for each other's views on certain things like this. But there's a general feeling in the fan base that this is a sad loss. The thing that gave it away, other than the fact that I could ring off a few facts that have disappointed me with Rangnick this season, is that when Carrick sort of, I know Carrick was kind of part of the Ollie regime really, but when Carrick took over those few games, he realised the importance of those games that he was involved with, and sort of stuck to a very tight formation, a tight knit sort of group of players, and a tight set of tactics that got us through those 3 games that he was involved with. I think when Rangnick came in, he stirred it up a little bit too much. Now, a lot of the fan base is saying, well, that was a really, really good thing. We needed that. I don't know if it is. I don't know if we did. There was still a hell of a lot to play for the season, and I think there was still a lot that was already exposed. We already knew the issues with the squad. Yeah, we did well last season, but we all knew that Liverpool would bounce back this season. We all knew that Man City would strengthen. We knew West Ham were obviously settling down in their new stadium, that they would be a bit of a threat. Spurs would strengthen. Arsenal have matured. So it wasn't much of a surprise. I don't think. I think it's not come to us this season as, okay, the performances have been very, very bad, but I don't think this kind of feeling of ill attitude in the camp has been anything other than familiar to us. Familiar when Mourinho was around, sort of slightly familiar when Van Gaal was around. And it's the same names, the same features. And yeah, you could say, well, Rangnick's been kind of this martyr where he's sacrificed himself on the cross for Man United. I just don't buy it. I think he came in to do a job, should have done a better one. And now when the goings got tough, he's kind of been, he's had a free ticket out of there. Now, when I watched his last press conference against before we went to the Crystal Palace game, and he was asked about Ten Hag coming in by that time it had been announced. And he said, "Oh, I can't wait to meet him. I can't wait to discuss my findings on the club and then the players." He was very buoyant about meeting Ten Hag. Ten Hag's press conference was the complete opposite to that. He went, "I'm not interested. I'll make my own judgment." Essentially, what he said. So that said to me, he had no interest in taking Rangnick seriously. So his judgment on Rangnick was, what he's done in this last 6 to 8 months has been useless, absolutely useless, because I'm not going to even take it on board. So he was completely disregarded, and I think that said it all. He's come in, he should have just got United solid, compact. Yeah, we want to play the best football. We wouldn't have been entertaining to watch, but we might have won a few more games, and we might have gone further in the FA Cup, and we might have gone a little further in the Champions League, and we might have, let's be honest, got top 4. But instead, all that was wasted under Rangnick.
I don't think we were top 4 material, Reece, to be fair, mate.
I understand but there was opportunities there, games this season where we should have done better. Norwich, Everton, Newcastle. It's just the list goes on.
True, but a lot of it for me, that's down to the players anyway. It's the players that can only do better. I talk about this all the time. I talk about it. I've had to do it myself. I've sat in a changing room many a times, and somebody's come to me and said, "Fucking hell, Stu, you should have done better on that cross. We conceded a goal because you were ball watching. I've got no one else to blame. I can't blame the manager. I can't blame the coaches. I can only blame myself." And this is the problem with football. This is the whole fundamental issue with football. It's the players that make the mistakes. It's the players that fall asleep, and it's the players that can dig themselves out. So I don't like going on managers for that.
I totally agree with you. I mean, I've just seen some comments on YouTube there in the background as well, and Jarvis has said, we need to take a step backward to move forward. I think last season was a massive smokescreen, guys. If we believe that Lingard, Pogba, Martial have just suddenly turned as bad apples this season, you're living in a fantasy world. These guys had bad attitudes 4 or 5 years ago. The names are coming up again before. It's ridiculous. So to say that Rangnick has been the reason that we've kind of flagged that issue up is he should have come in and tried to do the best that he could have done with the situation that he was in, and I think he made it worse, personally.
I think ultimately, the way I'd look at it, and Neil's joined us as well now, but I actually wanted to bring his point up here. He put this comment up. We're a massive club, we shouldn't have part-timers in managerial positions. Now, I actually agree with that. Man United should not be, and for goodness sake, we should not be having interim managers at this club. And I said it when it happened, I think. Ralph Rangnick's got a brilliant reputation. But Manchester United brought it up. Sorry, let me rephrase that. The Glazers brought in an interim manager into the club because they didn't want to spend any money in January. Man United needed, obviously the Greenwood situation happened, but then Cavani was already annoyed because he had to give away his shirt to Ronaldo. Then he just couldn't be bothered most of the time because he just... And this idea that he gets an interview to say goodbye and a wave. Do you know what? The guy can go. The fact that he's been given such a farewell just shows how out of touch that frigging Twitter account is, quite frankly, in general. I don't understand how you can have an interim manager in charge. If you really wanted Ten Hag, which it seems, and obviously we have now got him, so it's obvious we wanted him, go and throw the frigging lot at him. Go, we want you right now. We want you to be our manager for God knows how long. We'll go to Ajax, we'll give them more compensation, we'll throw the book at Ten Hag, we'll say this is what we want to do, we'll make all the structural changes that you want, but we want you now, we need you now. We shouldn't have to be going, right, let's write this season off and we'll bring him in the summer. It's not the way it worked. You would never see Real Madrid, you'd never see Bayern Munich, you'd never see Man City, you'd never see Liverpool, you'd never see Porto, you'd never see these other big clubs around the world bringing in interim coaches just to get them to the end of the season. The thing is, the club wrote the season off. They were just like, let's get to the end of the season. But what about all the fans like me, like Stu, like whoever else who goes to the game, who pay our money? We don't get to just go, we'll write this season off. We've still spent hundreds of pounds following the club. And quite frankly, it just shows a complete lack of care for the fans, and it shows that all they're bothered about is, oh, let's just save a bit of money this season and we'll go again next season. It's ridiculous, and they shouldn't get to do that.
The FA Cup was a big one for me. That was a massive one. I think we had a massive opportunity there with the FA Cup, and it wasn't even a bad performance against Middlesbrough. The ball just wouldn't go in the net, and sometimes that happens. As I'm sure we'll come on to discuss about another game where that happened yesterday. But yeah, for me it was it was that, and then I think you hit it on the head, Callum. To be fair, I just frustrated with him, really, mate.
Ultimately, looking back on this season, there's been so many things that have gone wrong, and I think this year has kind of culminated in the last decade, really, or the last 17 years. Everything that could have gone wrong has gone wrong this season. It's capitulated to the point where I think even other fans are starting to see how bad the Glazers are, because ultimately, I mean, I've been abused like mad on Twitter at the past 24 hours because of all my comments about Liverpool last night, but if that was us and we lost, Liverpool and City fans would have been rinsing us. So effectively, they need to get a grip. But, I think even in the back of their heads, they're aware, wow, their owners aren't good. Especially when Chelsea are bought and they have to put in a clause named after our owners. It's and then you get tits like Simon Jordan on TalkSport saying, well, what's the issue? Honestly. Anyway, Neil, good to have you on, mate. What do you reckon about Rangnick?
Just on the I know we're comparing us to Man City. Does anybody on this panel not believe Man City have got their next manager already lined up for the time the Pep goes? Yeah. So they would have a short list. They'll have a short list now of 2 or 3. Yeah. So it'd be a smooth transition if and when, because at some point he's going to go. The Rangnick thing was doomed from day one because they put that word interim into his title. The last time we had an interim manager, that didn't work out very well. And this was an interim manager who was already got another job, which had now been taken away from him. I've gone through a lot of the stuff on Twitter, and there's a lot of conjectures, a lot of people guessing this, guessing that. Let's be honest, we don't know. I've seen the one, did he go 2 months ago? Was it this? Was it that? He strikes me as the sort of person that if he was told to leave 2 months ago, he'd have just walked out. Because, the club, 2 months ago, the club was in the shit. And it's probably in a worse state now than when he took it over in some respects. I appreciate, and I've said this a few times on this channel, it might be that we have to take 2 or 3 steps back before we can even start taking 1 or 2 steps forward, because he's been so rotten for too long under this ownership group. I'm also hoping, my personal hope over the Rangnick thing is that Ten Hag said, I don't want him. I don't need him. I want to make my decisions. I want to be the one in the club. I want to be the one that's running the show. And I quite like it. His first press conference, I don't know if it was something that Stewart put up there or if it was Ben, but it was something I saw from someone at an AFU. I think it could have been you, Reese. Well, it could have been any of you, to be honest. I remember like a sieve. So, but it was mentioned that in Erik Ten Hag's first press conference, he seemed to be quite not dismissive of Rangnick, but it was like, oh well, he's here, so we'll let's see. And it seemed doomed from the day one. So this has just been a terribly wasted season. We've wasted money. The fan base has got more toxic. There's a lot of work to do in the club, outside the club, within the fans themselves. Thank God there was a fantastic comedy film on last night, one of the best ones I've seen in quite a few years. So that cheered us up.
Was it called the Champions League final?
Pardon?
Was it called the
was
Champions
it on
League final?
Yeah, that's it. It's always Liverpool, isn't it? I didn't notice any Real Madrid fans complaining about not getting into the ground. But anyway, point is. That better, I tell you what, Stu, that better not be true.
Do you know something? The irony of the pictures on the news and the pictures globally with Scouse fans hopping the fence, and legging it up, and then they're blaming the police, or they say, when we were, do you remember in the 80s How many times
God,
did you
yeah,
scout?
we used to do it all the time.
I
We
scouted
did it all the time.
all the time at Anfield. I've stood in the cop watching our great club.
We've all pushed through gates to get into a ground. I went to the famous Norwich away on the Monday when Norwich came second in the league to us, and we slaughtered Norwich on the Monday. They just pushed the gates in, and the fans were passing the tickets around with each other. So when the steward came to you, you'd got a ticket. I mean, I'm not condoning it, but we've all sort of
we
done
could
it.
get away with it
Now,
now. It was standing, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I find it very hard to believe that the Scousers would have had fake tickets, because they don't sound like those sort of people. I mean, they really don't. So there was fake tickets, people climbing the walls, whatever, and they lost as well. Have you heard this one about the Everton fans set up a coach company?
Neil, we're coming on to this later.
Well, I didn't know. I wasn't at the start. Sorry, Callum.
Yeah, but we're coming on to it in a bit.
We'll come on to it. But the Rangnick thing, I think Rangnick was doomed from the start. I think it was doomed from the start, and that's how it's proved.
Well,
to be honest,
yeah, I'd probably agree with that. I think we were all very excited about what he could do. And
like you said, Callum, interim, that word again.
I think when players know that he's not going to be there next season, it ultimately goes, well, we don't need to try that much for him because he's not going to be here anyway. So, anyway, John, what do you think, mate?
I think it was doomed to fail from the start when he took over the job. I think they probably, I think really if the best hindsight's wonderful thing, possibly he could have become the consultant in November. Maybe you could continue with Carrick until the end of the season because he was doing a decent job in the games he had. That could have been a possibility. But I think he was undermined a lot of the time when you think he said a few weeks back that he wanted to sign a strike in January. They won't sign a striker for him or any player for that matter. I think there was you had the case with Lingard at the end of the transfer window when he said he's free to go and that, and then the club said, "Oh, because of the Mason Greenwood situation, we had to keep him and that," but he's barely used him. I just think I do agree with Stu. I think he is. I wouldn't say he's responsible for the changes that have been made behind the scenes, but I think he's been having discussions with Murto to say this way you need to improve and that. I think Murto has taken his advice and made some of the changes behind the scenes personally. But yeah, I think I mean, he was always going to fail as a manager because he hasn't had the most glittering career as a manager. He's only managed the last 10 years and that kind of thing, and we didn't really allow him to do what he's good at, and that's work behind the scenes. But it is what it is. I don't think the club would have liked his honesty, that kind of thing, and it does throw into doubt whether we will make the changes necessary long term to be successful again. But yeah, I'm not surprised in the slightest he's not.
Right, well, let's move on from Rangnick anyway. Obviously, we thank him for his time here, and I'm happy that he's called a few things out. Obviously, his managerial time here hasn't been brilliant, but we wish him all the best with Austria. I did want to just briefly bring something up. Obviously, Nottingham Forest got promoted to the Premier League today. Now, to me, Forest are one of the big clubs in England. Seeing them in the second division was quite strange for me. So I'm actually quite happy to see them back in the Premier League. But the reason why I bring it up is obviously we have a very talented midfielder at Forest. And I just wanted to ask the panel. So we've now got these coming up. We've got James Garner over there. With them now being in the Premier League and possible Premier League experience, would you bring Garner back or would you keep him on loan for a season at Forest? Reese?
Yeah, I wonder if you were going to go for that. I can't sit on this panel and pretend I've watched every single one of his games this season. I know he's been popping up for how he's sort of got his first team place within the Forest team, and obviously he's been the integral part. I think today was he set up a goal, and I didn't watch the game this afternoon. It was at kids football, Carl, this afternoon. But I believe he set the goal up, didn't he, as well, which just rounds off his amazing season, really. I mean, he's a young lad, 21-year-old, and we've got a lot of young kids coming through, haven't we? I don't know. It's a big step. I mean, obviously, he's done very, very well, but, you know, he's kind of like Conor Gallagher territory, isn't it? At Palace, it's like, you know, they sort of do well. Todd Cantwell as well at Norwich. It's kind of like that, you know, those players that do very well from that championship sort of level. And I'm not saying Conor Gallagher did, but, you know, in terms of going up to that next big step up to the Premier League, it's huge, I think, from lots of aspects of their game required to improve. So I don't know, Cal. I think it's it'd be nice. It'd be a nice story, wouldn't it, for him to come back, get into the United first team, or, you know, try and get his place in the first team and gradually work his way in. But I'm not convinced. I think he probably needs another season either with Forest or with another team, I think, in the Premier League, to see how he fares in the league, and then make a decision from there. But I think he comes back to United, we're going to see sort of the Lingard syndrome, aren't we, where he doesn't really get a game, and his game suffers as a result, and then 2 or 3 years down the line he's shipped off to another club, which would be a shame. So no, not for me. I don't think he's, despite his unbelievable season, and fair play to him, you know, what a season he's had, and to cap it off with getting promoted, it's brilliant. But I don't think it's the right move for both him and for the club to go up to that next level that we're all wanting us to go up to. So yeah, that's my views on it, mate.
Yeah, fair enough. John, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Reece has said. I do personally think Ten Hag might possibly want to look at him from pre-season, possibly, see how he does there. But yeah, I personally think he's obviously done really well in the Championship, and I think he's earned the right to get game time in the Premier League and just see how he does there. I do personally would loan him back to Forest, you know, and just see whether he's good enough to play at Premier League level. Obviously, he needs to bulk up physically a bit more and that kind of thing. And I think he probably will, if, you know, with Forest in the Premier League and that. And I think it'll be interesting to see how he does with that. But yeah, I will personally loan him back to Forest for their Premier League season next season.
Neil?
I could get battered here. I'm not such a great fan of him, and I've got issues with. I think he looks a really, really good Championship player. I think there's no doubt about it. If you were picking a Championship team of the season, he'd be, at least, if he's not on the bench, he'd be in the first 11. He'd be in the first 15. My issue with him, and I've said this till nearly blew in the head, is that I just don't think he's got the physicality for it. I think he needs to seriously bulk up, whether that's going to affect his game. And also the pace of the Premier League is it's a significant step up. It'd be interesting to see if Ten Hag, if actually Forest make a bid for him. I mean, what would you do if Forest turned around and said, well, we'll give you 18 million for him? Or,
I'd say no immediately.
No, but someone might say yes. Someone might say yes, though, Callum. Someone might say yes and say, well, okay, 25 million, which I think has got to be his top ceiling. But would we buy him for 25 million as an answer to our midfield? And I'm not sure we would. I think, you know, if you could, I think his future, I think next season, I think he'll go out on loan again. Now, whether that's on loan with Forest to see if he can actually cope with the Premier League, or go to another Premier League club like, you know, a Brighton, or I'm not demeaning Brighton and Brighton and Crystal Palace, but maybe he goes to a Premier League club, and let's see if he's got the stature and the stamp and the physical nature that he needs to get through a Premier League season. That's my only worry with him. He's clearly nice on the ball. His fitness doesn't seem to be an issue, but it's just this. It's a big step up. So to bring him through and then suddenly think, well, he's going to play in the first team after spending the best part of 2.5 years on loan at different clubs, I think is a massive ask for. And he's still very young. So if he's I'm not saying his chance has gone, but I think there's a few things in his game that needs chance. By the way, my Ted in the background there. Just see my Ted? He's wearing the T-shirt with the Alex Ferguson quote on. Knock them off their fucking perch. Anybody comes in my house has to read that T-shirt.
I just to add to what Neil said there. I think the difference as well, with somebody like Garner coming into a team like we have been this season compared to sort of teams that we've had in the past, is that generally when you're bringing youth in, you kind of want them to bed into a winning team. You watch Liverpool bringing some of their youngsters through now, and it's so much easier to kind of bring them into games where you're doing well, or you've got control of the game, or there's lots of leaders round. You're bringing him into we're more relying upon him coming into the team and doing something rather than just coming in and adding a little bit of a percentage to what's already a very good team. And obviously we're not at that level yet. We need to get the team working, the first 11 sort of in place and everything else around it. And then maybe Garner could maybe add to that later down the line. But to rely upon him, like sort of to turn our team around would be very naive, I think, of a 21-year-old who's been playing pretty well in a championship team. So, yeah. But again, it's not knocking Garner. Sorry, Stu. I didn't want to take away from your...
He goes to Brighton for me. We don't loan him back to Forest. That'd be a bad move, that would. He goes to Brighton for me, or potentially Palace. Those are two places you'd send him. Brighton, because he'd fit Potter's way of playing superbly. We put him alongside someone like Basuma, who's a ball winner. Garner's more of a player in a box-to-box 8. I think it'd be a perfect foil. Playing under a manager the style of Potter, who's quite free and quite fluid, I think it'd be the perfect fit for them. Palace, again, maybe. Depends what they do with Conor Gallagher, I would imagine, or determine what they do with their transfer business in the summer. But if you put him at Forest, as much as I agree, John, with continuity, if you're in a side where Forest probably won't spend the money and they're going to struggle all season, he's just not going to benefit from it. He will benefit from a more progressive type of manager. And I think Graham Potter's the ideal one for him. And an outside push, and it really is an outside push, I'd say Southampton. Because I think, again, him and Ward-Prowse would work quite well together. But Brighton's would be his primary. It'd be absolutely superb for Brighton. We would so much understand a lot more about the kid. And Neil's quite right.
It could be interesting also because Basuma might leave Brighton this summer as well.
I don't know. I don't think Basuma will. If I was Brighton, I wouldn't sell him. I'd stick a price tag on him so high, I'd keep him for 12 months and I'd tell him I want you for 12 months. That's, you've got to do this in football nowadays. It has to be done. The Mbappe deal's going to screw everything over again. I don't think Basuma will leave. He may do, but I don't think he will. But Brighton, that's the best place for Garner by far.
Well,
in the Premier League.
My point on Garner was going to be, I think you're right, Stu. I wouldn't loan him back to Forest. I think Forest, they won't have a lot of possession in the Premier League. I think they might struggle a little bit. I don't know if they'll go down. It depends on how the summer business goes. But I think if we were to loan him out, I think someone like a Brighton would be great. Graham Potter's a brilliant manager. He'd definitely be able to get the best out of him. What I personally believe is, I think what will happen this summer is we'll sign 4 players. I genuinely think about 10 will leave. We've got 6 leaving out of contract immediately. I reckon we'll see 2, 3, or 4 be sold at least. So I reckon we will see about 10 players leave this summer. Now, if that's the case, 4 or 5 coming in, it does mean a couple from the academy will have to step up, I think, to bulk the squad up. And those out on loan will have to come into the squad as well. And I think Garner is one of those that probably could come into the squad and do a job for us. So I think that's what will happen. I think we'll see Garner at Man United next season, and I wouldn't be too bothered about it.
Is the loans policy changing?
I can't. I don't think we'll loan him out. If it does happen, it's obviously for the good of him and for the good of the club. But I genuinely think he's good enough now to give a go to, and depending on how many leave and how many come in, I think we'll see Hannibal next season a lot. I think we'll see James Garner should he stay a lot, and I think we'll see Garnacho a lot. I think they'll be the three that we see from the academy next year a lot. I think I could get on board with that. I'd be very happy with that. But Brighton or Palace, some Southampton, maybe a Newcastle. I think those 4 clubs could be somewhere good for Garner to go if he was to be loaned out. I don't think he should be loaned back to Forest personally. But anyway, moving on. We're going to close the show tonight with a really light-hearted subject. It's not like me because I'm quite miserable, but I thought we'd spend the last five or so minutes laughing at Liverpool, if everyone fancies doing that. Considering the greatest team in the history of the Premier League are FA Cup winners and Carabao Cup champions.
Didn't they win the boat race as well?
Probably. But, how do we feel about the media touting this club up as if they are the greatest thing ever?
Michael Owen still reckons they're the best team in the world.
Yeah, but he's a moron.
How
do we feel about Salah bottling all these finals? How do we feel about Van Dijk actually not being the best centre-back in the world? How do we feel about... Go on, Neil.
Did you see that footage of, the cross that ends up at Vinicius, where the position that Van Dijk had got himself into? It looked like Larry had painted him.
I'm glad you noticed that, Neil, because a lot of people didn't notice his position.
If that had been Maguire,
yeah,
Jesus Christ, they'd have any programs on the television. They'd have said breaking news across the BBC. We'd have thought, oh, maybe someone in the royal family's died, and they said, no, Maguire's made a mistake again. Then
I messaged my friends after and said, is Van Dijk playing Red House?
There's 2 things that
that shot that Vinicius puts it, that's he does well with that, because that's coming at him at some pace to keep that down as well. It looks like a tap in. It looks like a tap in, but it's like to keep it down is like it takes some under pressure.
I find it funny that.
Tell you what, Stu, you've made the point about signing more players who have inhalers.
Well, I know it's true, but the interesting thing about that goal is if you look at it from behind the goal, you've got Virgil van Dijk backtracking, decides not to go to Carvajal completely. Robertson was out of the picture. All right, so 2 things here: Maguire would have been absolutely slaughtered for that, but Shaw would have got away with it, and Tellez would have got away with it. But Robertson was nowhere to be seen. And Carvajal's not quick, but he can deliver a football. And why the hell nobody at Liverpool recognised the danger that Carvajal produced? Because the last 2 minutes of the City game, he put 2 crosses in for Rodriguez to score both his goals, both from the right side. Unbelievable. Secondly, the greatest right back on the fucking planet, Trent Alexander-Arnold. Did anyone see him look over his left shoulder to see where Vinicius was? And he still drifted in.
Something with that though. Sorry,
he still drifted in.
It's something that Maguire is constantly. He is lambasted for that. He doesn't scan around him. He's constantly ball watching. One of the biggest downsides of Trent's game, obviously, is his defensive work, I think. But how you can leave Vinicius that far away on his own,
you can't.
Is really, really poor, I think. And the fact that he was genuinely nowhere near him, it still has to go in the back of the net. Fair play to him for getting it in there, but
it
really was.
Yeah, Neil will know this, Carl, being a CDM, right?
Vinicius has done. I mean, he had a pretty dire first season at Madrid, didn't he? He got some real bad flack from the Madrid fans. I think this Champions League run he's been absolutely brilliant. I know Benzema's been class, but
let me just make this point quickly because this is really interesting. This point, and Neil will know this because Neil was a CDM. Now, when Van Dijk was pushed over and Canate was pushed over, and old Trent decided to look over his shoulder, and Vinicius was about 20 yards away from him. Where was the fucking CDM? Where the hell was Fabinho? You know, I'd have been screaming at Neil if I was TA. Where the fuck are you? You should be here where I am so I can cover Vinicius. It's basic football. It's not even difficult. And this is why, and I'm going to go on a rant here quickly. This is what fucking annoys me about people who have a go at defenders. They don't know how to defend. You've got to know what you're doing to understand defense. And Neil will back me up on this because Neil was a CDM. Yeah. And he'll know that Trent should have been screaming at Fabinho so that he could go across and cover Vinicius, and then Neil should have been in Trent's position. That's how it should be. Unbelievable. Basic football.
Once Vinicius saw the back of Trent Alexander, once you could see the number on the back of Alexander's shirt, it was all over. All it was, it's a question, well, if this ball comes in, I'm going to score.
Yeah.
Because he knew he'd got Trent Alexander-Arnold, I mean, what was he, 10, 15 yards away?
At least.
And yet he was defended, and there was a couple of quotes going, I think it was John Savage said, for the world's best fullback, he ain't half a shit defender. And but he's right. But he's right, and if that had been one of our fullbacks, he'd have been hung, drawn, and quartered. But because it's a Liverpool player, and the other thing that pisses me off is the socking up to Liverpool. I mean, it's funny. Do you remember when Sky employed Gary Neville and all the Liverpool fans were out? They were like, it's outrageous. We're going to cancel our Sky membership. And then you've only got to look on all the channels. They can't get enough Scousers on for the best of times. And when Owen said what he said, I still think they're the best team. Thank God Rio was there to pull his pants down and give him a slap. Because there was some ridiculous state. I mean, I know they were all getting stick. I thought Gerrard spoke quite a lot of sense about the Liverpool team. I mean, he just said they were beaten. He didn't come out with any bullshit like the others were.
You're absolutely right.
Well, he just said they got beaten. They couldn't handle this. They couldn't handle that. They've got to change the way they do it. This player didn't do much. That didn't do enough. And I mean, their keeper had a great save. But that's what Thibaut Courtois was paid to do. He's only doing his job. I mean, there's been many games this season where Eriksen has pulled off some blinders to get Liverpool a draw. I didn't see Klopp complaining about that. Because someone doesn't want to play football the way Klopp plays it, it's just so disingenuous.
Oh, he's a moaning bastard. I know he's
a miserable, disingenuous git.
That's kind of what I wanted to say about it, just very briefly, and then I'm done on it. But that interview he did afterwards was just the saltiest interview I've come across. I mean, he did it to oh god, what Premier League game was it now? Where the
Tottenham.
Conte.
Yeah,
John's right.
And it's just, what does he expect? Does he expect teams just to come out and play a high line and play out?
Does he expect them to come out and play a game of football exactly how he wants so they can beat them? Can I actually remind him that he actually won the Champions League against Tottenham with 40% possession? The guy can shut up.
I saw your tweet on that, Carl, yeah.
And also, he said there's something wrong about the keeper getting man of the match when Alisson got the man of the match 3 years ago when they won it.
Look, I don't mind a goalkeeper getting man of the match.
No, I don't. But
that's what he's there for.
Yeah,
he's there to do that. You know, if he's there and he's having a worldie, tough. If you don't score, tough. You lose a game of football. But you know that's life, I'm afraid. What they did, Liverpool, last night was lack their usual ruthlessness. And the reason they did that is because Real Madrid played a wonderfully tight but wide game, which sounds ridiculous, I know. But as soon as they're out of possession, the fullbacks tucked in really, really well. So they allowed Salah, they allowed Diaz to have the ball out wide, if you recall. And as soon as they got the ball out wide, the fullbacks would go out to them. And Neil, what did they go and do? As a standard fullback, you can fuck off down the side because you ain't coming inside. Because if you do come inside, I'm going to make you pass it back. Brilliant.
Diaz was a non-entity.
Right?
He was an absolute non-entity.
He's got it here. He's got it
here. I watched their two centre halves. One of them is actually a left back, and
Melito.
what's his name?
Is it Melito?
David Alba was the left back, wasn't he? When Alba was the left back at Bayern Munich. No, David Alba was left back when he was at Bayern Munich.
Oh, he was.
So,
yes, he played left-sided,
he was
left back and inside.
So he played left-sided. He played left-sided centre back. So that's where Rudiger will play, and I'm assuming Alaba will go back to left back. So they got the other guy named Melito or something, the other centre half,
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think we could sell him Varane back and get our money back? You can see why they're quite happy for us to have Varane with his half the time he's injured, but they've got centre halves coming through, and they've got Rudiger. All their two centre halves and Rudiger, all better players than consistent players than Varane. So they're going to take some stopping next year.
Yeah, the interesting thing what I liked about Melito was that he was willing to take a risk, wasn't he, outside the penalty area? He was willing to take that risk. Nice and strong, wide, made himself big, didn't he?
Yeah.
And
it was quite. Do you know what that Real Madrid team was quite reminiscent of that Milan team that won that Champions League with Mourinho. They went through a pretty tough. I think they had a tough group as well, and they went through with just resilience. He didn't have any right to really win the Champions League.
I mean, it's genius management from Carlo Ancelotti, and everybody's talking about how brilliant Jurgen Klopp is. But as has been pointed out, they got to 3 finals, scored no goals, and yet won 2 cups on penalties. And one of the penalties they won 21-20. So what's that tell you?
What was interesting tactically for me was, and I was speaking to a couple of my Liverpool mates, and they said,
wrap up as well, Stu, mate.
Sorry, mate, I'll be quick. And they allowed Liverpool to have possession for 20-25 minutes just to see what they were going to do, just to see if they could penetrate. Yeah, they created a couple of chances. But there was nothing, what you would class as clear-cut, was not clear-cut chances. There were shots outside the box, or Salah was falling away. And that was their foundation, believe it or not. Being battered for 25 minutes was the perfect foundation. And once they got a hold of the ball, and Modric was very quiet, but unbelievably brilliant.
He's so good.
And so was the crew alongside him. You hardly saw them, did you? But my God, when they had it. So anyway, sorry, Cal. I'll wrap up. You can wrap up. Mate.
Well, I'm going to finish with: have you ever won the treble? Have you fuck? Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. Make sure you're liking and subscribing. Thanks for getting involved in the comments as well.
Thanks for the invite, by the way.
Yeah,
thank you,
you're welcome, Neil. Thanks for coming on, everyone. Appreciate that. And I will see you. I think there's another show on Tuesday, I believe. There's one tomorrow, and I think there might be one on Tuesday too. But keep onto our Twitter, and we'll update you with everything that's coming as well. Yeah. Nice one. Cheers, guys.
All the best, lads. Bye-bye.
See you guys.